Good morning and welcome to Caretaker's Corner, where we discuss everything that has to do with taking care of our elderly disabled parents, our disabled spouses, and our adult disabled children and ourselves. My name is CJ and I am your guide on this journey. And I am having a crazy morning. I came down to shoot the video and I had to update all of the devices I use to make these videos. It seemed kind of weird. They all had to be updated at exactly the same time. They're not even all iPhone products or Apple products, so that was funny. We are continuing the series on negative self-talk. Last week, I did the first video I did was on the best friend litmus test. Then last week I did fact-finding the inner critic. And this week we're doing the thought labeling technique. So I'm hoping these are helping. And once again, I'm going to give you a forewarning that you're probably going to want to use your caretaker journal on a lot of this, to at least in the beginning on all of these, to help you get into the habit of using them. And it'll still take you forever to get it right. I mean, I do it all the time. Because when the negative self-talk starts, you don't realize it till you're really far into it. And usually. And then you've got to go, wait, this is a negative thought and I need to rethink this. So these are the tools that I'm trying to give you to help with the rethinking of it. So the thought labeling technique, when we have a negative thought, we often fuse ourselves and our identity with that thought. We believe the thought is us. So an example is, that I do all the time, is I am lazy. I'm not lazy. And anyone who knows me knows I'm not lazy. I may have bouts of just being exhausted or whatever and, lay down. But I'm not lazy. Relabeling it helps us create a psychological distance on the thought. So instead of saying, I am lazy, say, I am having a thought that I am lazy. By saying that, you're going from making it I am to, hey, my brain is thinking this. And this is a big issue that we all have. It's, when it comes to the negative self-talk, having to rethink and relabel things helps us to not identify as that. So it's, I'm not lazy, I'm not inadequate, I'm not a bad caretaker. And so these are the things that we are trying to do. I know that especially when we're more exhausted, it's easier for these thoughts to get into our heads because we're not as fast and we're not on top of things as much when we're exhausted. And for caretakers, we're almost always in a state of exhaustion. So once again, go back to just basic self-care will really help with working on trying to combat negative self-talk. And caretakers suck at self-care. So the first part of this is the I am having the thought prefix. So kind of like what I just said, this is the foundational step. Instead of saying, I am a bad spouse for feeling resentful, say, I am having a thought that I am a bad spouse. This just causes us to shift and creates a little bit of a gap between my identity and my mental activity. Then I can go on to another step saying, go back to some of the other stuff we've learned. Am I truly a bad spouse? Let's do that best friend litmus test. Am I truly a bad spouse? No. Am I the best spouse on the planet? Probably not. But I am a very good spouse. So I think Barbara tends to agree. Reframe that. So the next one we have is categorize the type of thought. So don't just label the content. Label the action your brain is taking. Is it worrying? Is it judging? Is it reliving? Or is it predicting? So the example would be, oh, look at that. My brain is depicting a disaster again. And we all do that. I like to call it buying trouble. We can take something very tiny that in this grand scheme of 5 hours down the road, 5 days down the road or whatever, is not going to mean a thing. And we can stress over it. Case in point, a recent issue. In my area, we got a lot of snow and ice. And when I went out to clean areas for the vehicles, I only cleaned 2 foot on either side, or on the side of the driver's side, because I was like, I have to go to work every day. And then for everybody else to go out, whoever else is going out, they usually get in on the driver's side. I didn't think it would be here this long on the ground. So that's all I did. And it turns out that 2 weeks later, well, let's see, I think we're going into almost 3 weeks later, we still have this stuff on the ground. And the problem is, I didn't clean off the passenger side. If you're going to take somebody somewhere, then we don't have enough room for them to safely get in the vehicles. And when I went to take Barbara to a doctor's appointment, I spent hours stressing over how am I going to get her safely into her side of the vehicle. It didn't take me that long to come up with a solution once I got out there, but I was still stressing over it way more than I should have. And we have a habit of buying trouble, just as humans, not even as caretakers, but as people in general. Our brains automatically will take something very simple and blow it out of proportion, and it's all in our head. The problem is when it's all in our head, our bodies react. So if we start stressing over something in our head, our body will start creating cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and then everything else, our body will start reacting as if we're having this situation take place, which is one reason why we need to recategorize our thoughts. Notice we're having them, number one. That is the big thing. Once we start noticing when we have these thoughts, we can faster and faster recategorize them and be able to change our state, right? Which is very important when it comes to stress, because the last thing a caretaker needs is more stress. Another item to try is the third person perspective. So refer to yourself by name, in third person. It sounds a bit odd, but it is scientifically proven to reduce stress. An example, I noticed that CJ is feeling overwhelmed by the medical bills right now. This turns you into an objective observer of the situation. So instead of being overwhelmed with what's going on at the moment, if you distance yourself by saying, I see CJ having this issue, well, how would I suggest somebody outside of me handle this issue? CJ is stressing out over the weather outside. How would I suggest to, say, my best friend, how she should address the issue? I know it sounds stupid. It may sound silly, but it works. And you don't have to use all of these. You just pick the ones that work for you and go with that. So the next thing is name the story. Typically, we go through the same thing over and over in our head. Much like how my schedule is basically the same every day. Like on weekends, I do things very specifically, almost every time in the same pattern. I get up every Sunday morning. I fix myself a cup of coffee. I fix Barbara's breakfast. I make sure to fold the laundry and put it away. I come down here to make my video. Then I'll go upstairs, and if there's more cooking to be done, I'll do the cooking. All right, so that's my work schedule. The problem is our brains do the same thing on a regular basis. We tend to worry about and relive the same thought patterns. So if we are struggling for money, we will constantly be thinking about money, and we'll be worrying about it, and our brain will go over that same thought pattern. So let's name that story. Example. Here we go again with the I'm not doing enough narrative. And I know that we all go through that one. And then we go, I know this one by heart, and I don't need to relive it again today. A lot of positive self-talk is just talking to ourselves to get rid of the negative self-talk. And no, it's not weird to talk to yourself in your head, so don't freak out. Heck, if I'm having a really bad day, I will talk to myself out loud. not around anybody, but I will talk to myself out loud. So the next one is the pop-up ad strategy. So we treat a negative thought like it's a junk email pop-up and just don't click on it. You remember I told you, I think last week or the week before, about how a lot of mindful techniques have you thinking about your thoughts as clouds that you just let fly off, or bubbles that you can pop. Same concept. Just think of it as a pop-up ad or a pop-up and just click out of it. Hit the X button. The next one is give the thought a physical property. If the thought had a shape, color, or weight, what would it be? Example, I'm having a heavy gray rectangular thought about tomorrow's doctor's appointment. By making the thought physical, you realize it is an object you are carrying and not a part of your actual self. The main thing we have to do with a lot of our negative self-talk is to try and get ourselves to understand it's not us, right? We identify with all these thoughts, but they're not us. And these are all just different techniques for us to distance ourselves, to not make these thoughts part of our identity. Thank your mind with a hint of wit. Your brain thinks it's helping by alerting you to the danger. Even if the danger is just a messy kitchen, we will blow this stuff out of proportion. An example of how to do this is, thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe by pointing out every single mistake I made today. I've got it from here. Or just say something like, it's not a situation, it's not an emergency, and it's not something I need to be getting upset about. That's the biggest part we got to do on this. So number 8 is the leaves on a stream visualization. And this goes back to kind of like the pop-up. If you're like a very visual person, maybe think of yourself on a creek bed with leaves going up it, and those leaves are your negative thoughts, and they're just floating down the river, right? You can acknowledge that they're there and that they're going away. And that is the biggest thing. We got to acknowledge that we're having the thoughts and then send them away. Number 9, label the sensation, not just the thought. Like I said earlier, when we have a thought, our bodies react. If you are having a thought about being sick, stressed, or angry, your body will physically start feeling that way. If you have a negative thought and it is about being angry or being stressed, your body is physically going to start feeling that. And what you need to do is not only admit that you're having the thought, but understand what your body is going through when you have that thought. Acknowledge it, get a positive, happy thought, and then change your stance, change your body, move. This will help your body physically get rid of whether it's the stress or the anger. It will help your body get rid of that tenseness in your muscles and will help relieve the situation. And I know some of this may sound like it's just mamby-pamby stuff, but it really isn't. It is proven in medical research. So you can go check out like any of the medical research sites, and it will verify what I am saying. Number 10 is the and pivot, or the yes and concept. When your brain starts going, you're lazy, you're not doing things correctly, what you need to do is go, I'm having the thought that I'm lazy, and I'm going to go make a cup of coffee, or I'm going to go for a walk, and I'm going to get this thought away. Sometimes it's just a matter of acknowledging the thought, choosing a healthy action, and moving on. Kind of like when they say, to quit smoking, or if you're trying to eat less, they suggest when you want the cigarette, do something else to postpone it for, like, say, another 10 or 20 minutes, and eventually you'll not want that cigarette. So this is the same concept. The longer you can, when you have the thought, acknowledge the thought, go, and I'm going to wait on this until I finish my cup of coffee, or I make my cup of coffee. And then by the time you go through the actions of making the cup of coffee, usually you forget about the thought. or I do, I squirrel all the time. That is one of the greatest helps of being able to get past a lot of these negative self-talks. I know that some of the stuff I'm saying may seem kind of out there. And I also know that one of the biggest issues that caretakers have isn't necessarily the people we're taking care of. It's more us. And there's a lot of things we can do to help improve the situation. Healthy diet, exercise, plenty of sleep. Now, some of these things are not going to happen every day. Now, there are some days I can sleep, get my 8 hours of sleep. Some days I don't. I have had sleep scores of 99 and I've had sleep scores of 16. So, take that for what it's worth. I try to keep to the same schedule, like any good caretaker. Schedule is important, but we also have Mother Nature, and we have things outside of our control, especially because we're taking care of people with medical conditions. And those medical conditions sometimes, just throw our schedule out the window. Case in point, Barbara and I have both had this whole head-chest thing going on. And I've had to change my schedule to make extra visits to the doctor. I ended up getting a shot of some steroids, and I am not a steroid type person, so it really affected me, and getting sleep was not an option. All of these things affect us. And like I said, the more tired we are, if we're ill, all of these cause negative self-talk to increase. So I'm hoping I'm able to provide you with a lot of different tools in order to be able to offset that negative self-talk. I'm hoping you can just throw these tools in your caretaker kit and be able to use them when you need them. Like I said, use your journal. Write this stuff out. You need to write down, I am having a thought about I can't handle this anymore, and I am going to go make a cup of tea. Or I am having a thought that I can't handle this anymore, and then continue to write it out in your journal. How are you going to change that thought? Are you going to go for a walk? Are you going to distance yourself from who this is? Are you going to label it? Are you going to watch it go down the stream? Are you just going to X out of it? So I hope this video has helped. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And next week, I should be doing retiring the word should, which I think is very important. It is the worst word, I think, in the English language. So have a great day, and I will see you next week.